All right, guys, here we go again. Church debater and preacher Mike. Mike, how you doing?
Man, I tell you, I am running almost on empty.
Running on empty. Well, you don't have your energy drink with you
I
today.
do, but that's the reason I have it, because I'm almost on empty.
I actually thought the way I described our show this morning at church was perfect.
Was.
I ask you the questions, you answer them, and then I correct your answers. I thought that was a good way to
You
describe it.
know what? I love the way you did that, and I think now people are going to jump in there just for that very purpose.
They're always looking for a way to prove you wrong. Is that what you're saying?
They're looking for somebody to say something about me. That's what they're doing.
Okay, all right. That's fair enough. I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
No,
Well,
I
let
don't
me
either.
tell you this. I'm going to make a selfish plug for my other podcast only because it's actually going to lead into what we're talking about today.
Okay, cool.
My other podcast, we're up to, I'm at a pace now that I'm getting like 100 listens a day. I mean,
Woo.
that's the highest it's ever been.
Wow.
I'm up close to 22,000 downloads total.
Wow.
But it's called Substitute Teachers Lounge. And, you know, I like to substitute teach. I've had Ezra in a couple of classes and we've had a good time. But I think I even mentioned at the beginning of the last show that I put out an episode called IXL is not a dirty word.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I started a war. Let me tell you, here's what happened. I usually cross post the link on, it's about 6 or 7 different teacher type sites that I've got permission to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And IXL is one of those things that people either love or hate. And the haters came out first, just like always. And then the ones that liked it came out, and there ended up being more of them. But then they were telling, if you do it right in the first place, you wouldn't feel this way. So I really started a battle.
Whoa.
But anyway, it led me to this. I thought it's time we talk about dirty words. Are you ready?
Ooh.
Are you ready for that?
Sure.
All right, I'm going to start listing dirty words. You tell me which ones are okay to say and which ones are not.
Well, I'll tell you. There was a preacher who decided to preach on that topic, and the first thing he did was quote a bunch of them, and then he said, "Now that I have your attention."
You've told me that story before.
I'm not sure that that's the best way to do things.
Well, here's the first one. How about shucks? Is shucks okay?
I have no problem with shucks.
All right, here's where I really want to go.
That's how I have to do that to get to my corn.
Okay, that's terrible. When we read the phrase in vain, if you just look at the phrase in vain, that means something that was done really for no purpose.
Right.
So let's start with this. When we hear about the phrase, do not take the Lord's name in vain, what does that mean? Is that a correct scriptural interpretation? And I guess that's it. Let's start with that. What does it mean? And is that the correct interpretation?
Using the name of God in a setting that either is not intended to be worship or instructional is a misuse of the term God. So to invoke him into a situation such as in swearing that by God I swear. I mean, James would come along and say, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Now, does that mean that a Christian can't put his hand on the Bible when he goes to court? Well, I don't think so, because that is you saying it is our cultural way of saying I'm going to tell the truth. Now, if a Christian says I'm going to tell the truth, and the court accepts that, then that's perfectly fine. But to use it in a derogatory way or in a way that brings God down from his high position is a way that I think he's talking about when he says not to take the Lord's name in vain.
Okay. And I did do a little research, and I think most of what everybody said was it means not to use it in a derogatory way, in a disrespectful way. I read
That's
that
right.
word a lot, a
That's right.
disrespectful way. I'll give you some of my experience as an umpire. I've only ejected um, two guys in 20 years. I
Mhm.
shouldn't say guys. It would, I mean, I would have done this to a female too, but
Sure.
the first one was because he said, Jesus directed at me. And when I ejected him, it was kind of like what I just described. I had half the people say, it's so refreshing to see somebody stand up to that. And then I heard another guy say, boy, it's sad when you can't even say Jesus anymore. So I'm thinking, okay, so let me take us down this road. What I hear it in the classroom a lot more now than I did when I was in school. Especially for some reason, the phrase Jesus Christ gets said a lot by middle schoolers.
Yeah.
Um,
Didn't know that.
they don't mean most of the time anything bad. It's just like something they've gotten used to saying. It's not directed at a person. It's not directed at Jesus. It's just words they say. So let me give you a situation and comment on it. What if somebody watches a massive home run go over the fence and they say, Jesus Christ? That's not negative. They're not, I guess you might say they're taking the name in vain. Comment on that. I'd be uncomfortable if I heard it, but comment on that situation.
I've thought about this a number of times. And
okay, good.
one of the things that I have been thinking about is how interesting it is that so many people who don't believe in God use his name all the time. That's fascinating to me. I almost wonder if the use of the name in that way, that is, at least in the minds of a lot of people, a neutral way of using it, almost lends verification to the reality of the truth of God. They can't get away from it. They say it and they can't get away from it. He's there. And so they say it.
I ventured to say an atheist has said it every now and then.
I would say the exact same thing. So my thing is that the calling Jesus into a situation that is not intended to be spiritual or and instructive or worshipful. When I say spiritual, it's either worshipful or instructive in spiritual things. Seems to me to be at least something that is not the best way to do it. I would not want to use that name, the name of God, for a home run. It just isn't the right venue.
Okay.
Now, I remember, I think you were there when we were having many years ago.
You're not going to tell anybody that I use bad language on the field, are
you? No.
Okay,
I wouldn't tell that story in public.
Oh, come on now.
Never heard that from Greg in my life. We were getting ready. You remember when we first started playing softball, we were in a league in Berea, and we were getting ready to play a game. We hadn't won a game yet. And somebody led a prayer and asked God to help us to win. And I thought, that's just not the arena where God spends his time.
Yeah.
He doesn't care who wins that ball game.
Right.
And plus the fact, what if there are Christians on the other side praying the same thing? We got competing prayers. We don't need that. So I think the arena in which it is used is the problem. And I wouldn't want to take God and put him into that arena.
Okay. I'm going to stretch it a little bit more. I mean, people wanted me to debate more. What? Same home run. What if they just said, help me, Jesus?
Is that a prayer for it to go over the fence? A prayer for the outfielder to catch it? Is that a prayer of a manager saying, please don't let it go over the fence? I mean, yes, I think that it is still the same arena. I'm not comfortable with it. I don't want to encourage the common vernacular name of God or Jesus just in flippant ways in whatever setting we're talking about.
All right. Now, I will say this, and this doesn't really have to do with taking his name in vain, but when we see celebrities, I think I might differ a little bit from you in this. When we see celebrities or athletes step forward for a speech and they say, if they say something like, thank you, God, for making this possible, I'm okay with that. I don't think that means for this win. I would interpret that as for giving me my ability. Thank you for helping me become the person who I am. How do you feel about people, celebrities that you might see on one hand using bad language, but then stand up and accept an award and thank you, Jesus, for making this possible?
Well, we don't disagree. And I believe that anytime someone honors God, I am good with that.
Good.
And I think that even though I don't like necessarily sometimes the show of it,
Yeah.
I don't like the football player who kneels on one knee in the end zone in front of 50,000 people to make his point. I just don't. But it's okay. It's better than not doing it, I guess.
That's
it's
true.
better than doing other things that they do.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of crediting God for talents, for abilities, for opportunities. And as far as the people doing it, living a certain way and saying certain things at other times, I think it shows the hypocrisy.
Okay.
And I think that that's a good thing to point out hypocrisy so that maybe it can be stopped. So I don't have any problem with it.
Okay, good. There is a word, let's see, 4 syllables. We live in Kentucky. We're not supposed to use words over 3 syllables anyway. But this is a word
we make 4 syllables out of we make 4 syllable words out of 2 syllables.
That is true. We don't need 4. We just make them 4. This word I heard all the time when I was a kid, so much so I thought it was right out of the Bible, and it's euphemism.
Yeah.
Euphemism is gosh instead of God, heck instead of hell, those type of words. Are they just as bad?
I think they are, simply because they are still trying to appear to do what the other words do.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna argue with you on this one.
I know, that's good. That's because people think you need to be debating more. They are trying to accomplish what the other ones were trying to accomplish, but get away with not being accused of having said them.
Okay.
And so when James said, let your yes be yes and your no be no, what he was saying was, just tell the truth. Just say the truth, live the truth, and you don't have to punctuate what you say with words so that people will then believe you. Well,
I think James was a much calmer person than most of us. What do you think?
I'm sure. I have zero doubt about that. Now, the problem I have with euphemisms is and admittedly, it's about, in some ways anyway, the dictionary definition. If you look up those words, the dictionary says that they are forms of those other words. And therefore, it has a relationship to those other words that we're not saying. And so that to me is a problem. Now, I get caught up in it, admittedly. So it's something we all have to work on, but I don't think it's something that should just simply be shoved off and say, oh, it's no big deal. I think we ought to talk about it.
All right.
And part of the reason why those words are not good is because we have to learn to control ourselves. I've always said, I love the definition I found many years ago. Profanity is simply the effort of a feeble mind to express itself forcefully.
I've always used the phrase, especially in business.
That's what I think about those words.
I've used the phrase, especially in business, that it's just adds words to strengthen an otherwise weak position. You try to throw as many words as you can and hope that, it makes you more
That's right.
convincing. Now, I will say this. You mentioned that I should have written it down. I've forgotten what you said, but there would be some people that would say the fact that I said gosh instead of the other word shows you that I am purposely not using that word. I'm using a different word because I don't want to use
That's
that
right.
word. They justify it that way.
That is exactly what people say.
But is that okay?
I can't deny it. Well, I will say this. I think that you get to a point where you have a person saying, this is the way I believe, and you got to let them go.
Okay. All right.
I don't believe it. I don't want to use them. I try not to, but I can't say Greg Collins is wrong because he did it.
All right.
Because the other side of that coin is, yeah, I'm trying not to say those words, but I'm trying to say something, and so I'm replacing it.
All right. I read the other day that the two most common things sent by way of text is LOL and OMG. What about OMG?
I know it. I don't like it. I think it pulls God into the common situation, and I'm just not in favor of it. No,
all right,
I don't like it at all. Have you seen that website that shows the text abbreviations that people are using?
I'm sure I have.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. It's probably more than just one website.
Oh, well, it may be, but the one I saw had hundreds of things that if parents knew what their kids were doing with this shorthanded stuff, they'd be mortified. Many of them.
Some of those parents would say the fact that they're
I'm not a fan of that one. OMG, I'm just not a fan of it.
Some of those parents would say that the fact that they're not typing in the words makes it okay. They're purposely not typing in those words.
I understand that. That's what they say. I can't agree with that because you know what they would do? They would not be in favor of purposefully shorthanding some other words.
Okay. All right. Speaking of those other words, let's go that way now. Okay. I'll read a scripture now. Let's start with Ephesians 4:29. Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who are here. Now that's saying don't use bad words, use happy words all the time, which is a perfect philosophy, but almost, I shouldn't say impossible. It is so tough to always be positive all the time. Let's go to Ephesians 5:4. Let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead let there be thanksgiving. Okay, that's enough verses. You feel free to quote some of your own. I know that in 1939, in Gone with the Wind, when the word damn was uttered for the first time in a movie, that people were shocked. It was also still the most watched movie in history. Isn't it funny how things change? I remember listening to good old Casey Kasem back in 73 doing a countdown of the top 40 hits of all time. And there was a song at about number 32 called Maggie May. And he described it as the only R-rated song in the countdown. And I'm thinking, man, have we changed or what? But so those other
Yep.
words,
Yep.
how did they become bad in the first place? And do the verses about not taking the Lord's name in vain apply to them, or is it more along the lines of just be positive all the time, say good stuff about people all the time?
Well, I would first of all say that I don't think you necessarily handled Ephesians 4 exactly properly, meaning I don't think that verse is saying be positive all the time,
Okay.
because it says, don't let profane speech come out of your mouth except that which is good for edifying. Well, sometimes you rebuke people in order to edify them, or you criticize in a way to help them.
But that
So
doesn't
that verse isn't going to keep
necessarily mean
that
use
kind
the
of thing from
words.
happening.
That doesn't necessarily mean use the words that
That's
we've
right.
been talking about. Right.
That's right.
All right.
That's exactly right. It doesn't necessarily. Go ahead.
I can tell that we have
a little lag time.
We do. I was thinking the same thing, and I'm not sure what's causing it. We're almost finished. I wanted to close with this thought. I would almost, if I had to choose, I would almost want people to use bad language with me rather than saying something so hurtful about me that's wrong that it destroys my life. Would you go along with that?
Oh, me. I probably would not, simply for this reason. If somebody says something about me that destroys me, it's because I let it destroy me. So I would rather not hear the bad language and learn to control myself no matter what people say about me. So probably I would be different.
Okay, well, let me reword that then.
That's my thought.
What I really meant to imply is it destroys. You didn't say anything about it, but because of the story they spread about you that was false, it ruined perhaps your business, your career, those kind of things.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you're comparing sins, when you start comparing sins, we all do it in a different way to some degree. Yeah, I wouldn't want that at all. And I can put up with language that, yeah, I would agree with you on that point. Now, let me make this statement about language. You ask about where did they come from? When did they become bad? I don't know, but I know this. It's a cultural thing. To some degree, these ideas are fashioned to the culture. So, for instance, if you go over to London in England and you use the word bloody, it's a curse word over there, apparently.
Absolutely.
Here, it's not. So a Christian shouldn't use it over there, but uses it here, it's fine. So I also think there are other words. There are some words that are considered curse words, but if you put them in a different setting, they're not curse words at all. The Bible even says, the old King James used the word people would be damned. Well, in scripture, that's okay, I think. But outside of that, there can be a use of it that's not okay. So I think we have to keep it in mind of the culture and the setting, and Christians should be sensitive to representing Christ in their culture in a way that will cause people to come to Christ, not push them further away.
Right. And as far as the history of words goes, it doesn't really matter. We know what words are offensive to some people, and we should just stay away from those. And like you said, let your yeah be yeah and your no be no, which is a good song, by the way. That was a song from the 70s by Brownsville Station. How about that? Let your yeah be yeah and your no be no.
Really?
So, it was. Who knew that was scriptural, right? Because they also had a song called Smoking in the Boys' Room.
But I knew you would know it. I
All right.
remember that one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. All right, man. We're about done here. I hope what we accomplish here today is use uplifting language to each other. I try, even when I'm teaching the kids, I try to say
Yes.
some things that are going to pick them up rather than make them feel bad. And we should treat everybody that way.
That's
All
right.
right, Mike, closes out with your most profound thought.
Well, my profound thought, I absolutely know it. I was thinking about it earlier today. I mentioned this morning, I heard some words that I haven't heard in a year. When I went to a nursing home and I was standing outside waiting, they said, "Oh, but you can come on inside." I thought about this. Find joy in little things. That's one thing that the COVID has taught us.
Right.
There are little things in life that we can find great joy with. I found great joy when they said, "Come on in." Let's allow COVID to teach us the value of appreciating and finding joy in small things.
Good, good. I couldn't agree more. All right, guys, that is it for this week of the Church Debater and Preacher Mike. Say goodbye, Mike.
Bye, Mike.